Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome to this month's Qualifier Play-In, which is going to be Best of 1 Magic Foundations Sealed. This is an event that you can get into with 4,000 gems, 20,000 gold, or 20 play-in points, and the reward is entry into the upcoming Qualifier Weekend if you can get 6 wins before 2 losses. The Qualifier Weekend is a 2-day long Best of 3 Foundations Sealed event, where you are out single elimination. You can't keep rebuying in or anything like that. So it's a really competitive event that could potentially qualify you for the upcoming Arena Championship and Pro Tour. So pretty cool competitive event there. This is just the first rung on that competitive ladder, and the best thing about this event for me personally is that it's a great place to spend all of your extra play-in points that you accrue by getting top 1500 Mythic in previous seasons. So I get to turn these 75 play-in points, well, I get to turn 60 of them into a good chunk of gems. Even if we lose no, or even if we win no games, we won't be leaving without gems. We'll be turning those play-in points into at least 500 gems here, but we get quite a bit more as we get more wins, all the way up to potentially 6,000 and entry into the Qualifier Weekend. So pretty exciting event. I'm super pumped for it because, again, no matter what happens, I'm going to be leaving with some gems instead of play-in points that you can only spend on qualifier play-in events. So without further ado, let's just hop in, play some more Magic Foundations Sealed. All right, we open ourselves up an 8 rare sealed pool. However, multiple of these rares are unplayable, like the Omniscience here and the Crystal Barricade. I guess Crystal Barricade isn't literally unplayable. You could cast it, but Omniscience certainly is. We do have a couple really strong rares. Celestial Armor is probably the #1 strongest one. This is just an excellent trick, being able to counter any removal spell when you flash it in and then just give flying for the rest of the game. Seer Slicer Goblin's also quite good, can get quite the board state off of this card alone. If we opened a lot of zombies, Zool could be okay, and if we're a pretty aggressive deck, the Scrawling Crawler can help us as well. Then there's a bit of a drop-off. Genesis Wave doesn't do a ton until you hit like 7 or 8 mana, so it's pretty hard to cast, pretty slow, but could be impactful. And Anthem of Champions, also pretty narrow, being a specific 2-color card and not even being that powerful in that respective archetype, but certainly playable if green and white are good in the sealed pool. So decent rares here. But as always, we're going to need to take a look at all of our commons and uncommons to really see where the power lies in this sealed pool. We've got some pretty good fixing. We have 4 different dual lands, so that is nice. For our multicolored spells, we have an Empyrean Eagle for blue-white flyers, Warden of the Cycle for green-black morbid, and Ruby for green-red power 4 or greater as different archetypes we could play, and I think all of those uncommons are great. I think Empyrean Eagle is by far the best of them, though. The blue-white flyers deck just really benefiting from buffing those with the Eagle. For our colorless cards, seeing if we have any fixing we could play in any deck. Courtyard really is not the greatest fixing. The banner's okay fixing and ramp, and then that's it for our colorless fixing. We do have a Meteor Golem we could play in any deck that can reliably make it to 7 mana, which in Sealed is not the most difficult ever, so most decks will probably throw the Meteor Golem in unless we're doing something really aggressive. So decent multicolored and colorless stuff here, but nothing that super strongly pushes us in any direction. It's not like we opened up, 2 copies of Empyrean Eagle or something where it's a super clear direction, so nothing we need to keep too much in mind there. I think we can just focus up on whatever the strongest couple individual colors are. So let's start off with our white now. So white looks really good. It has some great synergies with our blue-white uncommon. If we can play Empyrean Eagle, we have 2 Healer's Hawks as well as a Dazzling Angel. These are all just pretty good on-rate flyers. I probably don't want to play the Crystal Barricade or like the Twin Blade Blessing. Maybe not even the Claws out. I think we've only got like 1 or 2 cats, so this is just not going to be good. Yeah, just 1 total. I also like to not play Heir Apparent when it is the only copy in the sealed pool. It's just a 2 mana 2/2 with no extra ability, which is just not good in 2024. So these are all the cards we're definitely not playing, but everything else I think is at least playable, even if it's just somewhat filler like Inspiring Paladin or Cathar Commando, maybe even Make Your Move, but the rest is pretty great here, and if we don't have any other removal, having at least the filler removal spell is nice. So white looks like a perfectly reasonable color, but I would be the most excited about it because of the double Healer's Hawk and Dazzling Angel if we have a good like black-white life gain deck or blue-white flyers deck, as I think those fit really well into those archetypes. For our blue now, things look pretty decent. I do like that we have triple Strix Lookout again if we go blue-white flyers, although an offer you can't refuse, pretty narrow counterspell, run away together, pretty inefficient bounce because you have to recast your card. Unless you have a really good enter effect for really cheap, then I wouldn't really play this. And you want to have a lot to make this more consistent. So even just with like our one helpful hunter, it's not going to be a consistent runaway together deck. Imprison in the Moon is pretty narrow. You never want to cast this on turn 3. Ideally, this is your removal spell you cast once you're in the late game. Everybody already has 6 or 7 lands out. So it's a removal spell you can only play really, really late, or you're going to give your opponent a pretty big advantage by using a 1-for-1 removal spell that isn't even a 1-for-1. You're giving them something back. You're giving them a land, which is valuable if you're casting this turn 3 or turn 4, letting them double spell against you. So I am not a huge fan of Imprison in the Moon. Omniscience is literally unplayable. And then, yeah, everything else is at least fine filler. But if we played like blue-white, we've only got 2 instants that we're actually running out of our blues. So Tolarian Terror also becomes unplayable because we don't have a lot of instant sorceries in white. This might be okay if we go like blue-red, if we've got a bunch of red instant sorceries, but yeah, I think blue is actually a little bit weaker than our white, but it is certainly playable. I'm not so sure that the blue-white flyers thing is going to end up going super well, but if we have a color with a great 1-mana instants and sorceries to go with the Micromancer, that'd be a pretty big reason to go blue. Like if we have a bunch of copies of Stab in black for -2/-2, or Burst Lightning in red, then blue could be a pretty good support color, but it's certainly not a great standalone color. All right, so black seems like our best color so far. Not that the quality of the creatures here gets quite as high as it did in white, but having both a really efficient removal spell for small creatures and an efficient removal spell for big creatures is very, very good. It's got the best removal we've seen so far by a lot. And if we went blue-black, we could have Micromancer being able to tutor out Stab or Eaten Alive, which is pretty exciting. It's got a very high quantity of creatures as well, so there is plenty of solid, decent filler here to get up to the creature count that we need, but again, just no incredibly exciting creatures. We've got our one of Vampire Gourmand as probably the best creature in this stack. This is also basically our only sacrifice outlet. We have an Eaten Alive that we can sacrifice 1 card to, but with just 1 Eaten Alive and 1 Gourmand, I don't think the Reassembling Skeleton is particularly good or necessary. It's really never that exciting, just if you're using this to get a bunch of chumps on the ground. It's pretty inefficient, so I wouldn't use it unless I have a bunch of good sack cards. And again, we just have the 1 Gourmand, the 1 Eaten Alive. So I'd probably cut the Skeleton. I would definitely cut the Midnight Snack. I have never run this card, and I never intend to. I just don't think it's worth it. Blood Witch is on the borderline here, but we've got a pretty high creature count for it, which could be okay. Plunderers are pretty good in sealed, because every deck is going to end up with a good chunk of filler. So having the Plunderer to dig through some of that filler and try to put your best card on top is certainly helpful. Blood Thief, not the most exciting by itself, but we have good synergies for it. Both the Vampire Gourmand and the Vampire Soulcaller are hard to block vampires that we're going to want to attack with turn over turn. So if we can just keep chipping away with those, we're stacking up counters onto them with the Blood Thief. Also, the Sanguine Cipher makes it really consistent. Even if the Siphoner gets blocked, we're triggering the Blood Thief. So I think Blood Thief is actually solid in here, even though it's pretty filler generally. And then, sadly, our Zool Assure does not look great, but I will still play them because we do have the 1 Soul Shackled Zombie. So this is like a 2-mana 2/2 that a surprising amount of the time is going to draw removal from your opponents. At least in regular Premier drafts, maybe here in the Qualifier Weekend event, we'll be playing against more experienced players that are not going to immediately shoot this thing when we've shown them no other zombies. But if your opponent throws removal at this, you're getting a pretty good deal out of it. Just 2 mana to pull a removal spell out of their hand and shoot them for 2. It's one of the best things it does, just being a lightning rod for removal if you don't have the zombies in your deck. And we do have the 1 zombie. If we ever draw these 2 together, the Soul Shackled Zombie Zool combo is really good at grinding out a long game. I have won a game off of that before, where neither player could really attack into each other because we just had massive board states. So I just got to keep attacking with the Soul Shackled Zombie, keep recasting it from the grave, keep draining them for 2. So having at least that 1 Zool combo does mean on occasion Zool will actually do something pretty good. So we'll still run the Zool here if we play black, and black is certainly my favorite color that we've seen so far, and I think would pair well with both our blue and our white. Our blue giving us Micromancer, Eaten Alive, Stab, and our white giving us just all those good creatures, as well as some cheap ones to sacrifice, like our 1/1 cat, as morbid as that is. Next up, we've got our red here, which could play a pretty good aggressive game plan. It needs a really good core color to the deck, but if we want to go for a really aggressive version of our black deck or a really aggressive version of our white deck, this is a good support color there, giving us some aggressive options like Double Firebrand, Seer Slicer Goblin, and Slumbering Cerberus. All of these also synergize really well together, where the Firebrands are going to be getting attacks in right quick, just super early in the game, to get the raid triggers off the Seer Slicer Goblin, and these we can also sacrifice at any time to untap the Cerberus. So I like this little package of aggressive creatures. Obviously, always a fan of efficient removal, and burst lighting is that, plus flexible removal. We can do it for 4 later in the game, or shoot our opponent in the face for 4. And the involuntary employment would be decent if we go Rakdos, because we have 2 ways to sacrifice a creature. That's not a ton, but our red is aggressive enough, and we have tons of cheap aggressive black creatures as well, that we could even just use this as an aggressive spell that on occasion gets an absolute blowout with an Eaten Alive or something. So yeah, red, a fine support color if we just want to get really aggressive, but not an incredibly exciting one just because the sheer quantity of good spells is not really here. We would have to play some chunk of filler if our main color doesn't have a lot of cards in it, because then we'll have to play like a Firebrand Archer, which I just really don't like with only that 1 toughness in a format with the 2 mana 1/1 draw a card, the 2 mana 1/1 your opponent discards a card, 1/1 Elf Warrior tokens, all kinds of stuff like that. Has made me really low on Firebrand Archer. Frenzied Goblin as well, just not the most impactful ability, especially because you have to sink mana into it. Seismic Rupture would just be bad in here, and Bulk Up is really narrow. Spitfire Lagak is pretty slow, so there is a lot of filler in our red, so just a few really good aggressive options here. But still, looks playable. I don't think we have a single unplayable color in this sealed pool. So green looks perfectly reasonable. If you just want to play a bunch of creatures and beat down, that is what this color is doing, and that's what it's doing in this sealed pool. We don't have any removal out of green. That is obviously a bit of a downside, and our curve is kind of bad. We need a secondary color with a really good curve, but if we have a bunch of creatures in our main color or in our secondary color, then we could try to cheese some games out with Overrun. We don't really have any ramp here though, so Genesis Wave would be awkward as well, but I could see some 2-color deck getting aggressive with Giant Growths and Overruns, but I think all of our other colors are a little more flexible and a little more consistent, and I'd be more interested in that kind of stuff. The other thing that is a little exciting about our green, if you're really into the color, is that we have a couple things that look pretty good. We have good elf synergies, because the Elfsworn Giant is spitting out Elf Warriors. They get buffed by Dwynen, or sit on the board if we top deck a Dwynen's Elite. And we have the double treetop snare spinner. I think this card's actually really good in sealed. Just having some kind of mana sink like this when you get into a top deck war is excellent. You get to keep impacting the board every turn, whether or not you draw an actually relevant spell. So green is perfectly solid, but I think just the kind of decks I like to play, I'm more interested in the more flexible colors that actually have some spells, some removal, some variety to them, instead of just play some dudes like we can do with our green. So another quick peek through all our colors. I think right off the bat, I'm just going to go black for sure. I think that's just our best color. It has the highest number of cards in this entire sealed pool, and as such, it pretty easily has the highest number of playables. So it'll be the most consistent color. We just shove all of our black into the deck, and probably because we've got a really high amount of like 2-mana creatures, it should be easy enough to play a pretty aggressive deck, and we're going to want that with the triple raid triggers at 3 mana. So we probably also want to go ahead and throw in that aggressive artifact that we had as well, the Scrawling Crawler. So we seem like we'll probably be a bit of a better Scrawling Crawler deck than a Meteor Golem deck, so I'll throw this in for sure. Meteor Golem is still an option to have in the back of our mind here. But I think we're better for going for an aggressive curve. Going Rakdos or Orzhov are our best options there. Those both have the best, just like cheap aggressive creatures. Although green's an option too. Plenty of creatures in green, and that would give us access to Wardens of the Cycle, which is a decent value play. But I imagine playing another color that has more interaction is going to be pretty important for getting things out of the way, being able to cast Involuntary Employment and Burst Lightning, or like a Celestial Armor to jump things in the sky, and a Make Your Move to clear a blocker out. These are just really big deals for more aggressive decks. So yeah, there's pretty big reasons to play either white or red. Of course, white giving us armor as a huge bomb, Make Your Move to clear a path, and red giving us Sear Slicer as a huge bomb, and Burst Lightning to clear a path. But I suppose we'll just take a look at each one by one, and either way we get a dual land as well, which is pretty nice. We might even play Heraldic Banner here, because we have 13 black creatures, so just Banner on black could buff a lot of stuff. I guess 12 black creatures, and this is also fixing, so that could be interesting. So we'll definitely play 2 Hawks, Cathar's Commando, Helpful Hunter, Sunblessed Healer, Celestial Armor, Dazzling Angel, Inspiring Paladin, Make Your Move, and the rest is bad. Okay, so we'll play all those, then we get to cut 4 of our black spells. If we go for this color, wow, yeah, look at this curve. So probably Reassembling Skeleton. And then what else do we have? Maybe Siphoner. It's the next most filler 2-drop, or Blood Witch. Although we've got a nice high creature count here, I think Blood Witch should be okay. Triple Gutless Plunder might still be a lot, although maybe I even cut an Inspiring Paladin before those. We have no +1/+1 counters. This is just a 3 mana 3/3 first strike during our turn, which is fine, but not great. And non-creature spells. Oh yeah, Midnight Snack immediately. That's got to get cut before any of these creatures, for sure. So here's a pile of 5 cards we could cut already. So I think we just do that. Cut 4 out of those. Yeah, pretty easy deck to build. Just a few cuts here. I like the Siphoners with the Blood Thief synergy here. So I think I'll keep one of those and then just cut these 3. Skeleton for sure is pretty bad for this deck. We're just getting full aggro with this curve out here. We're not going for a longer game plan. And yeah, 17 creatures, 6 non-creatures. That's a nice high creature count, nice aggressive creature count. So it'd be a nice little Orzhov aggro build. It's not a ton of removal, but it's about the most we can possibly have in any 2-color pair in our sealed pool. And I don't think we have great fixing for trying to do any splashy 3-color nonsense, especially when our best color black is pretty low to the ground curve-wise. We just go for a streamlined 2-color aggro deck either way we build it. Yeah, pretty into this deck. I'm going to save the deck as is and then take a look at the Rakdos deck and see if that looks better to me. I think Celestial Armor is pretty bonkers, so it's going to be hard for me to be more interested in Rakdos than Orzhov, but it is possible. One more card. Oh yeah, Bloodfell over Scoured Barrens, and then a bunch of mountains over plains. We'll have to swap. Could play the Archer, could play a Bulk Up. I guess I could just go back to doubling up the Siphoners with our Blood Thief again. I mean, this looks really solid too, honestly. They're very much just different shades of the same deck. They both look quite nice. I feel like the white deck is a little better at connecting and getting damage through because it gives us a few flyers naturally with some Healer's Hawks as well as the Angel. Plus, it gives us a Celestial Armor to turn any of our creatures into a flying threat throughout the rest of the game. So it's better at connecting. This red deck is a tiny bit more aggressive, a tiny bit better at like destroying opposing creatures because it has 2 Firebrands to kill 1 toughness stuff, has a Gorehorn Raider for 2 damage, and Burst Lightning's a little bit better than Make Your Move in terms of flexibility there. Of course, the Employment clearing out a blocker. But I think I really, really like Flyers and Sealed, so I'm gonna auto build back to the white version of this deck. Just swap right back, get the Flyers in here, and go for that. Although I guess since I saved the deck, I can just close out of the deck builder and have it rebuilt. So because I can do that, I will give green a chance. I've got time. throw all those in there. Probably throw Meteor Golem with the higher curve. We're not going to play Wildwood Scourge. It's only going to synergize with the Snare Spinner, really. Well, I mean, it is pretty fancy with Snare Spinner. Maybe we'll play it. Okay, if we went Golgari, got a really low amount of non-creature spells and interaction in general, but we get the Mana Sink here, which could be good. Might just like cut the Vampire combo and get heavy on the Elf synergy here. Do something like... Soul Caller's still good, even if we don't care about vampires. Blood Witch. Well, no, we've got a really high creature count and a bunch of token producers. Now, by playing green, probably Stomper. Gets out of here. Maybe a little worse at triggering raid early. I mean, this is still a lot of 2-drops, though, so we're fine at that. And this deck looks fine. I do get the Overrun. I'm not going to play Genesis Wave, but we do get the Overrun, actually. That I would play. Maybe Giant Growths. So this deck is way less interactive. But it can just oops, I win with an Overrun with a really high creature count. Which is certainly cute. I could like leverage Giant Growths to be my early removal. More efficient than Fake Your Death. I don't have a lot of enters effects to like re-up with a Fake Your Own Death either. Yeah, I'm fine with Giant Growth. Like it's good with the elites, the Fake Your Own Death, but generally just being really cheap here. Helping us keep all the creatures on board feels good. Maybe you just run like one Snare Spinner for the Mana Sink. Maybe not the Scourge if it's only got the Snare Spinner to synergize with it. Banner actually ramps towards Meteor Golem Overrun here, so it is probably fine. Just some little cuts like a 1 Plunder or 1 Giant or something would call it a deck. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, genuinely, this is a perfectly viable deck. This is another path to try to take. Just try to flood the board with Elves with an Elite and a Giant with a Dwynen. I still just really prefer just having the flyers and more interaction with the Make Your Own Move and Celestial Armor. Green doesn't give us any, like, well, Overrun is sort of Green's bomb. So the bomb we get by playing white is Celestial Armor, the bomb we get by playing green is Overrun, the bomb we get by playing red is Seer Slicer Goblin. If I had to pick out all those, I would pick Celestial Armor. It's just good in a wide variety of positions. And flying is just cracked and sealed. I'm just going to go black-white, get the flyers in the deck. And, yeah, I have taken a look at everything, but I will go with my personal favorite of these decks, although I think they're all very, very close and would all be pretty viable color pairs to run. There's probably a slightly better build of the green, going a little more all-in on the Overrun, like actually do just still run the 2 Elfsworn Giants probably over something else here. But again, I still just don't prefer the green to the white. So we will go for our Orzhov build. Reload our deck up. One last peek through the cards that we're not playing. Make sure we're not missing out on anything particularly powerful. We really aren't. Maybe a Vampire Siphoner if there's anything pretty bad in the deck, but I don't think there is. I could play a Vampire Siphoner over land 17, I suppose. This curve is quite low. We have a banner as well. Super, super low curve with another Siphoner. Yeah, you know what? I'll play another Siphoner over land 17, or even an Inspiring Paladin would be okay. Go for a Siphoner. Get that Stromkirk Blood Thief, all of its vampire friends. We have 14 black cards and only 8 white, none of which require 2 white mana, so we'll go a 9-8 split here. And yeah, looks like a super solid little black-white aggro deck. Pretty pumped about it. We will call it a deck here, hop into the gameplay, and see how far it can take us. Last second shout out to blue-black, though. I do think we could play literally any two-color pair that involves our black in this sealed pool, but I really want to jam that Celestial Armor onto some of these really efficient black creatures, so we are still rolling with our black-white build. Alright, here we are on the play for game one. We look like a mono-black deck here, which obviously we're not, so that's a little awkward if we draw in any of our white spells. But we have a really good rollout here, going Siphoner into the Raid trigger on Plunderer to set up our draws. That also fills a graveyard for the Soul Shackled Zombie if nothing else happens to die, but something we'll probably trade in battle before we cast the Soul Shackled Zombie anyway. We've also got removal here. We've got a way to save one of our creatures from dying. It just has a little bit of everything you want, except our second color of mana. Alright, here we are on the play. Drop that down, pass the turn. Mirror match here. Our opponent also starts with a Swamp. Love me a Gourmand, but I do need something to sack for it actually to be exciting. So I'm going to go with the Sanguine Siphoner. It's the creature that's more likely to be able to attack and get us a Raid trigger without dying here for our Gutless Plunderer, since it's got the higher toughness, and it deals just as much damage as the Gourmand if our opponent does not respond to it. So here's the Gutless Plunderer now. Find another Gutless Plunderer or the 4th mana for the Soul Shackled Zombie. I think we just find another Gutless Plunderer, honestly, and just run those out 2 in a row, looking for the Plains as our 4th land. Okay. Could stab the Blood Thief, attack both, and play Gourmand here. That's actually a pretty efficient, pretty aggressive curve, so I'm going to go for that. Keep the pressure on our opponent while they're also stuck on one color of mana. And being able to stab this thing before it potentially gets any bigger is also nice. And they are stuck on triple black here. Could Banner get 3 extra power on this board, but Gutless Plunder still puts 2 power on the board. So it's almost as much damage over time. And it sets us up for our next color of mana. I could Banner on white, but then I don't buff anybody on the board. Okay, well, we found the Plains. That's very cute. Unfortunately, our opponent did not, or whatever their second color was, they just could not find it. So we start things off 1-0 heading into game 2. Alright, here we are now for game 2 with a really nice opening hand. It is a little low on mana, but we're on the draw, plus we have 2 ways to draw an extra card. If we curve out with Gourmand first, follow it up with the Helpful Hunter, we draw the card, then draw the card off of the Gourmand attack immediately on turn 3. So we get to see a bunch of extra cards before we need to hit that 3rd land drop. That is only if they don't blow up our Vampire Gourmand, but we still get the Helpful Hunter draw no matter what, and I guess the benefit is if they kill the Vampire Gourmand, we don't have to go around sacking cats and being the villains. Okay, black-red, quite likely to just blow up this Gourmand, to the point where, actually, since I've hit all my land drops, I'm just going to play Helpful Hunter here. Because being black and red means they could have Stab, or Burst Lightning, or Abrade. So much cheap removal in the color pair that I'm going to just curve out with the Helpful Hunter to set up draws. And cast our other stuff first. This Vampire Nighthawk is a massive issue. Unfortunately, that dodges like all the removal in this color pair in our sealed pool. We have 1 Eaten Alive that can kill that, but Stab doesn't make it small enough. I guess if we hit Stab, we can block and then stab it. But yeah, Lord, can we not race that thing here? Because of the lifelink. Alright, awkwardly, it does look like they don't have any of the common removal spells in their color pair yet. No Stabs, no Burst Lightnings. But yeah, that's just, those are the 2 different colors in the format that have a 1 mana instant at common that can kill Vampire Gourmand, so that's why I held off on it and played Helpful Hunter instead. I think it was a reasonable line. I mean, it just resulted us in getting a little bit less damage in here, it looks like. Okay, they did have an abrade, sure. I don't know why they did that during our turn. I guess they're playing around fake your own death. Fair enough. But we do not have that. We have a bunch of mana. I think we're just going to get soloed by a Vampire Nighthawk. It just perfectly dodges our removal, like I said before. I think the only color we have that can kill this is red. We have one copy of Burst Lightning that can kill that. I guess we have Imprisoned in the Moon, but then they would just have cast the Shivan Dragon a turn earlier. I do have the Maker move for the Shivan Dragon there. All in on Eaten Alive on this Nighthawk. Thing has gained them at least 10 life, I think. But our Dazzling Angel's done a lot of work too. Go to 3. If they have a Burst Lightning, I die no matter what. Because if I double block, they can just Burst Lightning my Gormond and then kill all of my creatures and not lose the borders. But then if I don't block, they just Burst Lightning my face. What else could it be here? +2/+0 to both creatures. Would kill me if I don't block. Bulk Up would kill me if I don't block. Oh, they're all really bad for me even if I do, though. Yep, I mean, so I just lose no matter what. I could be literally dead right now if I didn't block. But now I'm functionally dead still. Because the borders gets to remain. And we hit land number a lot here. Well, Soul Shackled Zombie life gain plus Dazzling Angel life gain does mean technically not completely out yet. Trade into Goblin Borders on blocks. Go to 8. They go up to 14. Surprisingly, even with the uncontested Nighthawk having been around so long, it does look like if we drew exactly as many spells as them, we could still potentially be in a winning spot here. We just drew a bunch more lands. And now I'm dead no matter what, because this can't block. I have to chump a borders, go to 2. Dang. Alright. Vampire Nighthawk was super awkward for us, but we also flooded a whole ton this game, so not much we could do on that one. Still pretty confident with our build. I think this is still the best build in our sealed pool. Technically, there are builds that are slightly better against Vampire Nighthawk, like our Rakdos build, but any deck could have hit that much lands, and we are 1-1 heading into game 3. Alright, here we are for game number 3. Not the greatest hand in the universe, but it has a lot of draws that would be really good. The problem here is I've got like Gormond with nothing good to sack, and then Sunblessed Healer with probably nothing in grave. I guess if they blow up my Gormond, getting it back with Healer is going to be pretty good. Alright. I don't mind Gormond sack Blood Witch, but it's probably better to not sack. This is pretty interesting. If I just send in here, fake my own death and play a Blood Witch. Or they don't block, and then do I banner or Blood Witch if they don't block here? If I banner, I know I have at least 4 mana next turn. I could fake your own death and Blood Witch and keep the treasure. Got like Blood Witch pre-combat as well, which is pretty cool. I might have to banner for a second white for Sunblessed Healer though, so I'd like to delay the decision on that. Because ideally banners on black if I'm going to have multiple black creatures. Yeah, sure. Let's just drop the Blood Witch here. This may come back to bite me, because it can lead to some pretty mana-inefficient future turns, where I don't have my double white ready, so I have to wait quite a while for Sunblessed Healer, potentially. Okay, hello Empyrean Eagle. Hello Dazzling Angel. Okay. Do I cycle Fake Your Own Death to draw a card here, or do I just let the Blood Witch die and don't get a treasure out of it? I think I'm fine to just let the Blood Witch die. I do want to draw the card here, though, towards a land of any kind, but preferably a plains. Okay, Swamp is still not the end of the world. Can banner on white play the healer unkicked all in one turn, or I could just drop this angel. Drop this angel. Lightshell Duo, welcome. Ooh, beautiful draw. Beautiful draw. I do that pre-combat to attack with unblockable Gormon, sacking Blood Witch again. Do I want to fake your own death this turn to kill the Empyrean Eagle? Could also just eat alive the Empyrean Eagle. Get a couple damage in. They've got no flying blockers now. There's a lot of ways to do this. Let's eat this eagle alive, I think. Because that potentially gets us multiple unblocked attacks instead of just the one that sacking something to Gormond would get. Okay, here comes their own removal, sure. Luminous Rebuke is fine. A little sad, though. This is only 2 mana or less, so we can't get the flyer back. Okay. Now I can banner on black. Kick the Sunblessed Healer. They could Cathar Commando by my banner, but it doesn't matter too much. So I play around a flash creature here by sacking the Blood Witch. I don't think I do. If they play a flash creature, it just trades anyway. And the Blood Witch being able to trade on blocks here is quite nice. They could have Shore Up, I guess. It's also 1-for-1 trade. Ooh, what is this? Is this a double up? No, it's just trade Cathar Commander for banner. That feels favorable to me. I was expecting, like, they would do that if they had, like, a 2-3 flash somehow. Or any kind of 3 toughness flash creature. Okay, there's Squad Rallier, so if the game goes long, they will draw better than us. But hey, there's Scrawling Crawler. It is going to give them as much card draw as us, but that life loss is going to stack up real quickly. Okay, I think we sack Sunblessed Healer, so Blood Witch keeps getting pings here. Soul Caller's a really good draw. Can Soul Caller back the healer now? For 2 turns of Graveyard Recursion in a row? Also, Soulcaller just being a big flyer is already good in sealed. Alright, take that Scrawling Crawler ping. They're down to 7. Come on in, Light Shell Duo. Homunculus Horde, if they draw a second card during their turn, they get a copy of it, but Scrawling Crawler draws the cards during my turn, so it doesn't give them Horde copies. We draw a Stab. Is Stab enough to get lethal? I can stab a Homunculus Horde, Homunculus Horde. They can block or Crawler. I can deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus a Blood Witch trigger. That is lethal if they don't have a response here. By Fake Your Own Death on just an unblocked creature. Alright, Blood Witch gets us the kill, and that is 2-1 now, heading into game number 4. Alright, pretty nice grindy hand here with Helpful Hunter, Blood Witch kind of stuff going on. Turn 1 Llanowar Elves on the play. Scary. One of the scariest starts in the format. Definitely the scariest green start, because since they're on the play, that means they're going to be slamming down 4 drops while I have 2 lands on my board. Yep. They're curving out 2. Llanowar Elves turn 1, Ambush Wolf turn 2. Do they have the 4-drop turn 3 as well? Oh, another Vampire Nighthawk? Not the 2 for 2. For both our losses, potentially. How do we get around this? Okay, so we Fake Your Own Death. We attack in, no trigger with this Gormon. Fake Your Own Death if they block. And then I Gutless Plunder post-combat to be able to trade into Ambush Wolf. I hate having to trade Gormon into this Nighthawk, but it's not that bad if I Fake Your Own Death it. Because then it's still around. Alright, so they're just not going to accept that trade, which is fair. I could try to set up a Dazzling Angel Fake Your Own Death as well. It's probably better to Gutless Plunder first still, because I need to be able to block and trade with Ambush Wolf. And I am definitely... Oh my god! So they have double lifelink now, and I have to find removal for Bloodthirsty Conqueror or I'm instantly dead. Well, that's sealed. This is just over. That's it for this run of the Qualifier Play-In. Yeah, Fake Your Own Death is not even big enough for the Conqueror. I don't have the mana to Angel and Fake Your Own Death the Nighthawk this turn. Yikes. Yeah, I mean, you got me. I'm dead. Llanowar Elves full curve out into Bloodthirsty Conqueror, turn 4 on the play. That is not removal. To gain a little bit of Dazzling Angel life here. Draw a card. See if I get land for turn still. And nope. I'm dead to a whole lot of things right now. Pretty much any removal spell does it. If they blow up my Angel and then attack with their whole team, I'm dead on board. Sure. I mean, they're in such a demanding position, they can easily play around Fake Your Own Death here. Well, if they attack all, I'm dead. No matter what this way. But I think my best line is to banner on white so that potentially Angel plus Fake Your Own Death is enough to kill Conqueror. But if they attack with everybody, I have to double block the Beastkin Ranger, Fake Your Own Death the Bloodthirsty Conqueror, and then I just die to Nighthawk plus Llanowar Elf, stealing 3. I could cast a Blood Witch, but then I have no way to kill the Bloodthirsty Conqueror, so they just send it in again. I think I have to banner on white and hope my opponent misplays, but judging by them playing around Fake Your Own Death, they are not going to misplay here. Well, if they don't have a combat trick in hand, then we live an extra turn with them going for this attack. Fake Your Own Death is going to give us another turn to top deck Eaten Alive or make your move. So we have 2 outs now that we wouldn't have had otherwise if they just attacked all. Tiny chance. That's not the outs, but I do get to chump for a turn. So I have time to try to get those outs. Is there any way to not die attacking in here to trigger our Gutless Plunderers? 7 mana. I can cast 2 creatures, so I can be at 5 life. I can't be at 6. So there's no way to not die if they just take the angel damage, or even if they just block the angel. There's no way to not die and get a raid trigger. So because we're not going to get a raid trigger, we go Blood Thief, Blood Witch. And then our block here puts us to 6, which gives us 2 turns to find an out for Conqueror, which again, we have 2 in the deck, Eaten Alive and the other thing. We actually have 3 outs. I forgot about our flying equipment. Our flying equipment does it as well, especially with 2 Death Touchers in the hand. Healer's Hawk gives us another turn. And Plunderers do some digging here. Okay. Sure, still get my raid trigger. These are not gonna work. Imagine we're just casting another Plunderer at this point. So let's just decline. Man. Blind Draw or Reanimate a Healer's Hawk? It's gotta be Reanimate a Healer's Hawk, right? Because that just guarantees another turn and a lot of threats on board to try to race a little bit. Yeah, it's actually Sunblessed Healer over drawing Blind. Oh boy. And if we block, then we make sure they're not gaining 5 every turn, so I think we're still just blocking every turn. Despite having enough life to take it. Gives us the smallest chance of racing a little bit here. Soulcaller Nighthawk, that is miserable. Could always choose Helpful Hunter with the Sunblessed Healer, but I mean, now that they have 3 flyers, Jesus. We are stopping a lot of damage. with this Healer's Hawk, and technically I'm dead on board if I pick up the Helpful Hunter and don't hit anything, because they've got 10 flying power out. I'm surprised they let me kill the Soul Caller here. Maybe they just top decked lethal. Nope. I actually get to kill the Soul Caller. No giant growth or anything there. That really does not do it. I guess I'm at 10 thanks to the Sunblessed Healer. So I still have another draw step. I've had like 10 more turns than I thought I would ever have, but it doesn't really matter if you don't hit the removal for the Conqueror. But we're like 3/4 of the way through our deck, looking for it at least. That's something. There's 3 outs in the bottom 15 now. Oh my god, Regrower, just get the Soul Caller again. Jesus. What can you do? That is 2 and 2 for this Arena Direct. Or not Arena Direct, Qualifier Play-In. There's too many different competitive arena events with all kinds of different names. Alright. Man. Yeah, no, we were dead on board like 10 turns ago or something if our opponent played really aggressively there, but they played a little patiently, so we had as much time as possible. I think that's about as long as we could have grinded it out. So I think I'm pretty happy with how I played it, but we just did not hit our Make Your Move or our Eaten Alive or our Celestial Armor. All of those would have killed Conqueror. So if we had hit any of those before they got the Nighthawk back, we actually flipped the board in our favor. They have a massive amount of life to get through, so they're probably still in the lead, but that was our plan the whole time, just did not find the answers, though. 2 and 2 it is for this Qualifier Play-In Event, but still think we made a pretty strong deck here and played it out as best as we could. Just got a couple losses due to not finding the right stuff. Bit of a chunk of flood in our first loss, and an insane curve out from our opponent in the second loss. Just an incredible lineup of plays from our opponent with Llanowar Elves, curving out, casting a threat every single turn, including a Vampire Nighthawk, and then topping it off with the Mythic Conqueror thing. Yep, rough to lose it out here to Vampire Nighthawk twice in a row, especially Vampire Nighthawk plus the Conqueror. But not a terrible record, still a 50-50 run, and I think this was a pretty solid deck build and some solid gameplay. I don't think there's much more we could have done. Did the best we could, but that is magic. We grab 1,500 gems as the prize out today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed watching it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.